So good morning, all. Welcome to the IDR Community Benefits Advisory Group meeting. Just want to give some folks a heads up who may be watching online. We're moving public comment to the beginning of the meeting to give us a little bit more of an easy flow when we move into the conversation at the end of our meetings. So I'll share how to access public comment in just a few slides here. Next slide, please. We have closed captions in English and Spanish. English closed captions are available within Zoom and YouTube. Users can follow the link to view on both English and Spanish captions in a separate browser window. Next slide, please. To access closed captions, at the bottom middle of your screen, you should see a menu of options. If you can't see the menu, hover your mouse over the bottom middle of the screen. Guys, when we have side chatter, it's hard for folks online to hear. Then click on the CC icon and a separate window with captions will appear. Next slide. ASL interpretation. In the effort to continue to center equity, there is an ASL interpreter in addition to closed captioning. To make sure the interpreter is always visible, please right-click their video and select Spotlight Video. For those watching on YouTube, when we screen share, you'll be able to see the slideshow, closed captioning, and the ASL interpreter. You will still be able to hear different people, but may not see them speaking. Next slide. So public comment this morning, there will be an opportunity to provide brief public comment. This time's incorrect, my apologies. We will start that at about 10:25. Verbal public comment will be welcome in the Zoom webinar during the designated time with the option to turn on your camera. Please use the link located in the meeting description on the YouTube meeting page or the IDR CBAG meeting webpage. Commenters will not be allowed to share their screens and will be removed from the room once the public comment period concludes. To comment by phone, you will dial 1-646-931-3860 or 408-638-0968. Enter meeting ID 823-5803-3783, passcode 385815. You'll dial *9 to raise your hand. And after you're invited to speak, you'll dial *6 to unmute yourself. So Greg, I see you online with us. I'll hand it over to you for our welcome.
Oh, can you hear me?
We can.
All right. Well, once again, this is an important task that this group is taking on to help set context for the program and help shape what this program will look like in a public facing way. So just want to thank everybody for their participation and time. Sorry I can't join you. I'm feeling a little under the weather and didn't want to give anybody what I have. So, but once again, welcome and thank you for your participation.
Thank you, Greg. Commissioner Mapps.
Hi, folks. My name is Vengus Mapps. I'm here representing the city of Portland, and I want to thank you all for coming into downtown Portland today to participate in this important discussion.
Thank you. Maren?
Good morning. Ann McInerney, Ogle Mayor for the city of Vancouver. I'm sorry we have this river that divides. We'll correct that the next time.
We'll build a bridge.
Good idea. Let's do that. We're looking forward to making some progress. Good.
Thank you so much. Next slide, please. So briefly, our group agreements, we put relationships first. We keep focused on our common goal. We notice power dynamics in the room and create space for multiple truths and norms. Be kind and brave. Practice examining racially biased systems and processes. Remember, this is a learning space for everyone, and we look for learning. Advisory group members will turn cameras on as they share this space together. Take care of your personal needs as they come up. Virtual participants can participate by taking written notes, using the raise hand, or speak features for active engagement. We welcome diverse perspectives. It is okay to disagree. We ask you to move up your listening if you tend to do a lot of talking, and we ask you to move up your talking if you tend to do a lot of listening. Assume and have good intentions. Next slide, please. So we'll do introductions with our Community Benefits Advisory Group members. Please introduce yourself with your name, your organizational affiliation or at-large status, your pronouns if you choose, and just something you're looking forward to over this holiday season. Marcus, we'll start with you.
Oh, my name is Marcus Mundy. I'm the Executive Director at the Coalition of Communities of Color. My pronouns are he, him, his. And I'm looking forward to traveling somewhere warm. Pretty cliche, but I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Eric Holmes, City Manager for the City of Vancouver, he, him, and looking forward to having both of our kids under our roof.
Good.
Oh, great. Holly Williams, community member of City of Vancouver, Arnada neighborhood resident, and she, her.
Carly Francis, she, her pronouns, Washington State Department of Transportation and the Southwest Region Administrator. And it's not family related, but I'm really excited about opening the 4th Safe Stay tomorrow with City of Vancouver and Portland on Washout right of way, which will be the first partnership of its kind in the state. Very excited to be able to participate positively in a place where we mostly just have to navigate moving people out of really, really unsafe situations. Also in partnership with the city, so we appreciate that. But that's what I'm really excited about.
Credit to Carly and DOT for being such amazing
Yeah, looking
partners.
forward to it.
Oh, me, sorry. Hi, everyone. Darcy Hoffman, she, her pronouns. I'm the Director of Business Services at Workforce Southwest Washington. And I am excited just to have some time off at the end of December. Pretty simple.
Corky Collier, Executive Director of the Columbia Corridor Association. I'm looking forward to the stress of the holidays, the too much shopping, navigating the airport. No, wrong question. It's taking the little one to grandmother's house. That's what we're doing.
Hi, I'm Walter Valenta. I'm a Bridgeton neighborhood resident. I'm also on the 40-mile loop land trust, so I have a little bit of context for trails. And I was also part of the Columbia River crossing, so I have a lot of historic references as well. And I'm looking forward to, our family does a big multi-generational Christmas dinner, which is actually really fun. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Hi, folks. My name is Mengus. I serve on Portland City Council. I'm also the commissioner in charge of PBA, which is one of the things that brings me to this table. He, him, and this holiday season, I'm looking forward just to a couple of days off.
My name is Tom Hickey. I serve on the Citizens Advisory Group for the IBR and sit here as a representative of that organization, but I'm also representing on the CAG, the North Portland neighborhoods. He, him pronouns, and I have 2 new kittens at home, so I'm looking forward to chaos this week. Yeah, knock down trees, definitely.
Thank you. We'll move to our online space. I have Greg.
One more in the room.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Ryan. Go ahead.
That's Ryan Winsheimer, ODOT Region 1. I am looking forward to a couple days off and going someplace warm.
That's it.
Thank you. Let's go to Greg and then Javier and then Jamie.
So I'm Greg Johnson, IBR Program Administrator. I'm looking forward to heading back east to visit with family and having some days off and watching football, watching the Wolverines win a national championship.
Javier Navarro, I serve on the LULAC board, League of United Latin American Citizens. Excuse me, I'm also, I don't know what I caught last night, but something hit me hard. For the holidays, my daughters come from Hawaii and my sons come from Texas, so it'll be all about family time.
My name is Janie Haygood. I am the chair of the Vancouver Parks and Rec Advisory Commission, she, her pronouns, and I am looking forward to my daughter coming home from the University of Washington.
Thank you. I have Vicky, then Peter, then Farley.
Good morning. I'm Vicky Nakashima, and I live in East Vancouver. I am a member of the Equity Advisory Committee for the IBR, and I'm hoping for a tiny bit of snow, not enough to close down the bridge.
Anyone in transportation is not hoping for any.
Good, Peter.
Good morning, I'm Peter Fells. He, him are the pronouns. I'm at large Vancouver citizen. During the holidays, my wife bakes lots of cookies and treats, and I wrap them and deliver them to friends and neighbors. I'm looking forward to eating the broken and misshapen.
Hi, everybody. I'm Farley Winters. I'm an architect at LSW Architects in downtown Vancouver and also a resident of the Arnada neighborhood downtown. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm looking forward to going to my parents' house. I still get to be a kid when I go home, and I'm very much looking forward to some rest and relaxation at their place.
Thank you. Scott S., then Jasmine, and then Michael.
Hello, everyone. Scott Sharba, Development Project Manager at the Vancouver Housing Authority. I'm just looking forward to a little bit of rest and relaxation with friends and family over the holidays.
Hi, everyone. Jasmine Tolbert, she, her pronouns. I am a board member for the organization SWEC and representing them here. What I am looking forward to is also some just quiet time, R&R, and getting souped up and ready for the new year.
Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Strauss. I'm with Kimco Realty. I run development for the Western US for Kimco, and we own the Jensen Beach Center. I'm representing the retailers in our shopping center and around our shopping center across Hayden Island, as well as the future retailers and tenants and businesses that we expect to come to the island in the future. In terms of what I'm looking forward to, I'm still thinking about the desserts that we talked about from before the Thanksgiving. I'm with Walter and a couple other folks that just talked about the food. So that's what I'm looking forward to most. Forget the rest and relaxation. Let's talk desserts.
Thank you, Michael. Scott M., and then Nate.
Morning, everyone. I'm Scott McCallum, he, him pronouns. I'm the superintendent at the Washington State School for the Blind. And I'm looking forward to just a little bit of time off. And if we do get any snow, I hope it's when we don't have school, so I don't have to.
Good morning, everybody. Sorry I can't be in person. Nate McCoy, President, CEO of the National Association of Minority Contractors, our Oregon chapter. My preferred pronouns are he, him. I'm gonna double down on Marcus Mundy's comments on getting in some warm weather. I beat him to the punch. I'm heading to Cancun with my family on Sunday. So I'll send y'all some warm pictures while y'all in the rain. But glad to be here with everybody and some great work ahead in 2024. So thank you.
Thanks, Nate. I mean, kind of thanks. Don't send me the pictures. Did I miss any other members online?
Yes, Shanrika McLean. I'm sorry, guys, but I'm in sunny Southern California right now. I represent the IBR team, everything DBE, and I'm looking forward to my son coming back to California from University of Utah.
Thank you. Jessica and then Ernesto.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jessica Green, she, her pronouns with the Portland Parks Foundation. And we're a citywide parks nonprofit. And I am hoping for rain in the cities, but snow on Mount Hood so we can have some ski days with the kids.
Okay, I was a little late, so what is the prompt other than introducing myself?
Name of organizational affiliation, pronouns if you choose, and then something you're looking forward to over the holiday season.
Okay, great. My name is Ernest Fonseca. I am the Chief Executive Officer of Hacienda CDC. We are obviously community development corporation, primarily doing housing and services. I use the pronouns of he, him, as stated in my screen. And honestly, I'm just looking for quiet time. I don't care what's going to happen, just quiet time. That's it.
Thank you, Ernesto. The whole room felt that. Let's go ahead and pull up our slides. So just a quick overview today. We'll go through public comment first, then we'll have a program update by Administrator Johnson, followed by the presentation on the draft supplemental environmental impact statement with some time for Q&A and discussion. Hopefully there'll be some time. We don't want to cut that short, but we'd like to spend a little bit of time in small group discussion, reviewing what you have in your handouts, which includes both what we presented in October, but also recommendations that came from your small group discussions in October. And I'll share more about that when we get to that section. Then we'd have a large group report out, followed by closing and some next steps. Next slide, please. So we do want to move into public comment. You can go ahead to the next slide. So our instructions to make verbal comment, dial 1-646-931-3860 or 1-408-638-0968. Meeting ID is 823-5803-3783. Passcode 385815. You'll dial *9 to raise your hand, and we'll call on participants to provide comment. You can then dial *6 to unmute yourself. Please provide your name and affiliation, and we've got a 10-minute time frame that will be divided up among speakers. If you run out of time and have not had a chance to speak, you can still provide comments after the meeting. Next slide. To submit comments after the meeting, you fill out the comment form on the program website or email your comments to info@interstatebridge.org with CBAG Public Comment in the subject line. You can call 360-859-0494 or 503-897-9218 or our toll-free number at 888-503-6735 and state CBAG Public Comment in your message. Written comments need to explicitly say CBAG Public Comment in the subject line or the body of the message for them to be identified and distributed to CBAG members. All written comments must be received prior to 48 hours in advance of each upcoming meeting in order to be distributed to members. Comments received after that point will be distributed to members in advance of the next meeting. We did not receive any written comments for this group this month. Next slide. Xander, do we have any public commenters today?
None at this time.
Thank you. All right, Greg, I'd like to hand it over to you for our program update.
All right, thank you, Shannon. Can you hear me?
We can.
Excellent. So the program is fiercely busy as we are rolling up into the new year and looking forward to getting the draft supplemental document out. For those who don't know, we are in the middle of environmental or draft environmental supplemental environmental impact statement. And that's the one of the key steps to actually having a project. So in the lead up to that, we are doing numerous presentations, engaging the community to get them ready to participate in this process. So we have, we've done presentations for the Arnada Neighborhood Association, the Bike and Ped Advisory Committee of the City of Portland, the Metropolitan Mayors Consortium, which is the mayors in and around the Portland area. So we also presented before CTRAN Citizen Advisory Committee. So all of these meetings are just key to getting folks up to speed and letting them know what's going on with the program. So we are also, we did a virtual public briefing that I thought was tremendously well done and important, once again, to get the general public up to speed. So that's on our website if you want to view that, and that gives an overview of the program. So if you want to direct people, if you're a community-based organization and you have members who feel that they don't know what the program about, that virtual public briefing is a good learning tool. Also had a great time presenting in front of the Washington Public Ports Association last week. Very good audience, asked some very good questions. Vancouver City Council forum. And we also did a community-based listening session, community-based organization listening session, which was a multilingual and hoping to spread the word about, once again, the upcoming draft supplemental, the public hearing process, and how to comment. So our focus for 2024, once again, is going to be to get to the draft and get as much participation as we can, make sure that everyone is knowing how to make relevant comments. As we tell folks, just telling us that you don't like something is not a relevant comment. You have to tell us why you don't like an aspect of the program or why you do like aspects of the program. So we will be bound to answer all comments that come in. So we are once again looking to get through that process and get to what's called a record of decision. And that's the last step in any federally funded process that says, yes, you have a job. Now you can move into the real estate portion. You can start construction. So that's the focus in 2024, is getting through the remainder of the NEPA process and getting a record of decision early in 2025. We also are going to be redoing or revising and updating our estimate, taking into account the latest inflationary and project pricing that we're seeing, not only here locally, but around each state and around the country. So that's going to be a huge undertaking. But once again, we will continue to do community engagement, getting to a document for the program that will address the needs of these communities, taking into account the work that this group is doing, as well as the Equity Advisory Group and the Community Advisory Group. So it's going to be a busy 2024. We will have more meetings with our bi-state legislative group. We have one coming up on Friday. They go in session starting in towards the end of January, so they're going to be busy, but we plan on still touching base with that group and keeping them informed of how things are moving forward. So I don't know if I have another slide. I do. So federal grant update. We are actually expecting a mega grant announcement any day between now and sometime in January. So That we put in a grant application of 600 million. The largest grant that they have given out thus far is 290. But as my dear departed mother would always say, aim high. So we aimed high. So we'll see what they give us for that grant. But our biggest grant application is the big Bridge Investment Program grant. So we submitted for 1.5 billion, and that grant we expect probably towards May or June of 2024 to understand the size of the grant that we hope to be awarded from the U.S. Department of Transportation. So we also had a VIP visit from Governor Inslee of Washington. So he came down on a rainy day and spoke about the importance of this program and the cooperation that's happening between the two states and how it's critical to get this project done this go round. So it was a great visit, gave our team some more wind in our sails. So we had a lot of great speakers. Mayor Ann was there, as well as the Secretary of Washington State DOT made some great comments for on where the program is going. So on November 28th, we had a bi-state legislative committee, and the meeting recording is available on our website. But once again, a very robust meeting. We've changed the format to where it's a more interactive meeting, and I think all of the participants, as well as our team, appreciate fielding questions and getting those questions answered in real time. And the ones that we can't answer, we go do our research and bring it back for the next meeting. So we will be meeting with the Bi-State Legislative Committee tomorrow. So if you want to tune in, we think it's going to be, once again, a very informative session. So with that, I think that's my last update slide. So thank you guys. And I am going to sign off because my head is pounding. So please have a good rest of the meeting.
Thanks, Greg. Take care of yourself.
Will do. Thank you, everyone.
So I would like to introduce Chris Reagan, who is our environmental manager, and we'll go through draft supplemental environmental impact statement and some of the work coming up here in the coming months. And Chris, I saw you in the room, but now I'm not sure. Oh. I see you're off mute, Chris, but we can't hear you.
Yeah. Still can't hear you, Chris.
Yeah, I think maybe the problem connects his audio.
I can hear you fine.
There you go.
We got you now.
I am playing with fire right now, though, because I am virtual. That means I have two very loud dogs that could explode at any time, and a headset can help mitigate that. I'll do the best I can with what I've got. Thank you, Shannon. As she said, my name is Chris Reagan. I'm the environmental manager for IVR. Really happy to be here with you today to talk about one of my favorite subjects, the National Environmental Policy Act. So I'm going to go into a pretty deep dive into NEPA and then also talk a little bit about how your efforts fit with our team's goal of ensuring our decision makers for the IVR program consider how to avoid and minimize or mitigate impacts to community and environmental resources. So next slide, please.
So to better understand the work our program is engaged in, it's valuable to take a deeper look at the National Environmental Policy Act. Although it might feel like it's going to take a long time, please stick with me. I promise it won't. And it's really going to help us dive into IBR. So the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, was passed in 1969. The intent of NEPA is to ensure that decision makers on major federal projects understand the environmental and community impacts of their actions, and that they provide the public an opportunity to review and comment before making a decision. NEPA is a procedural law. So over the past 50 years, the process has been refined and improved by practitioners in the courts to work better at identifying those impacts and ensuring meaningful public involvement. And it's really a planning tool. So NEPA is a planning tool. It requires agencies to define the purpose and need of the project and the alternatives to address that need. The design is done at the right level, just enough to understand impacts of the proposal, but before so much is invested that it's difficult to change direction. Once the purpose and need and program alternatives are decided, NEPA practitioners use industry standards to assess impacts of the design on community and environmental elements to determine the environmental impacts of the action. So the work that our program has been engaged in leading us up to this point has been to work with subject matter experts to define the means and methods of our assessments, to do those assessments, to have that work checked first internally and then with public and tribal experts in charge of resources being studied, and with federal agency subject matter experts. Then our team has been working to make those studies understandable within the body of the supplemental environmental impact statement. So that work to make our technical studies understandable includes the same kind of reviews and scrutiny by internal staff, by agency experts, and by joint leads and cooperating agencies as we prepare that document for public review during the defined NEPA comment period. So what does that look like for IBR? As we started into our NEPA work for the program, our federal partners confirmed that the previous study's purpose and need remained valid and that supplemental information was necessary to update the federal NEPA decision. IBR worked with our executive steering group to establish the modified locally preferred alternative to be studied in that supplemental EIS. And the modified LPA identifies key elements of the program to study and to compare against a no-build alternative through the NEPA process. These two alternatives have undergone the assessments that I described earlier and will be available for public comment. Once we receive that public comment, our staff are going to work to address those comments and to clarify, update, add analysis, and change elements of the modified locally preferred alternative in response to those comments that we receive to avoid, minimize, or mitigate impacts of the selected alternative. So all of the work done to address those comments and to update the analysis and alternatives will be provided to the public in the final supplemental environmental impact statement. Following the SEIS, FHWA and FTA, Federal Highways and Federal Transit Administration, will issue their amended record of decision based on the NEPA process. So I've summarized the words on the screen here, but basically we're studying the modified LPA against a no-build at just the right level. The results of the analysis are going to be published in the draft. That document will have all findings, all of that will be available for public review and comment. There will be no changes to that modified LPA until we're able to see the comments we receive, and we'll make those additional refinements and move that forward. So next slide, please. And it's important just to clarify for our conversation here, within this planning process, we have alternatives and design options. The modified LPA and the no build are the alternatives. Within the modified LPA, there are a few options that won't dramatically change the footprint of the alternative. So for example, it's not a new corridor, but it will have different impacts that are being assessed. So examples that we have of design options within the modified locally preferred alternative include the bridge configuration. So that bridge configuration will have a similar pier structure, but different superstructure elements. The modified LPA also includes a single auxiliary lane, and it's going to be compared against 2 lanes over the bridge, 2 auxiliary lanes over the bridge. I-5 alignment and C Street ramps are being assessed to consider trade-offs around Fort Vancouver and within the city limits. And our transit team has identified park and ride locations to assess the impact of those park and rides and their role in improving transit operations. So each of these alternatives is a future condition. So conditions projected to occur in 2045. That's called the design horizon there. And again, that sets up the comparison so that we can look at what are those impacts that we need to try to avoid, minimize, or mitigate. So next slide, please. So this is what the components of that modified locally preferred alternative look like within their geographic context. A lot of things on this slide. The elements include changes from what was previously studied and include environmental analysis to understand impacts associated with decisions to implement IBR's modified locally preferred alternative. Next slide, please. And so with our alternatives conceptually designed, we can then jump into the specific NEPA requirements and follow the planning process to help the community and then our decision makers understand the trade-offs and what we've done to avoid, minimize, or mitigate the community. Up I hear. Is that within the meeting room? And what we've done to avoid, minimize, or mitigate the community and environmental impacts of that decision. So the structure of our draft supplemental EIS follows NEPA requirements. We have a summary, we've got front matter, we describe the purpose and need and the alternatives and how those alternatives were chosen. For us, it will include work from our previous study and what we've done to update the modified locally preferred alternative. And then we dive into the analysis of impacts, the existing conditions and environmental consequences. Over 20 disciplines here, studies designed and written following those industry standards by subject matter experts, as I described earlier. Again, it's reviewed first internally and then with public agencies and tribal experts in charge of resources being studied, and then with federal agency subject matter experts. Then our team has been working to make those studies understandable within the body of that supplemental EIS. That work to make the technical studies understandable includes the same kind of rigorous review and scrutiny by our internal staff, by agency experts, and by joint leads and cooperating agencies as we prepare the document for public review. So that's the 20 chapters of existing conditions of the environmental elements. Within the draft supplemental EIS, we'll also have a financial analysis chapter and a specific statement regarding impacts to a handful of specific resources, parks, historic resources, natural resource lands. That's called Section 4F evaluation, and the Section 4F evaluation is 4F of the Transportation Act of 1966. There's also a number of appendices, and those technical reports will be available as well. So next slide, please. So within the content of our Chapter 3 analysis, we're also going to include a discussion of the impacts and benefits. So there's going to be a mix of qualitative and quantitative analysis. There's going to be long-term effects described, long-term direct effects, short-term construction effects, indirect effects. Those are the ones that occur farther in distance or further in time. And there'll be cumulative effects. So program effects in combination with past, present, and future effects from their other actions. We'll also be talking about mitigation. So what are the proposed measures to address unavoidable adverse impacts where possible? So after we've done the work to avoid or minimize those things that we cannot avoid or minimize, we'll talk about how do we mitigate. And those mitigations include both regulatory and best management practices, as well as project-specific mitigation. Next slide, please. So that's where you come in. So besides the work you're doing here to help IBR think about what we're already doing to avoid and minimize or mitigate those impacts, we're also hoping that you can be part of our efforts to get the word out about important public review period that's coming up. So we're asking for help to spread the word with respective communities about the draft supplemental EIS becoming available for public comment and the importance of providing that public comment to shape decisions that advance to the final SEIS and record of decision. That will include a 60-day public comment period, and we're going to have a number of in-person and online opportunities to receive information for others to ask questions and to submit comments. The public comment provides valuable information for the program to consider as we look at changes required to that modified LPA, and to work with local, state, and federal agency partners to make key decisions about the program's design. We're also asking for you to provide your own public comments on the draft supplemental environmental impact statement, and our staff are ready to jump in and make sure that we have the right analysis done, that we modify according to the comments that we've received from the public. So next slide, please. We're planning to release the draft supplemental environmental impact statement for public review and comment in the spring of 2024. I know there have been comments and questions about the length of time the document's going to be available for review, and we're doing everything we possibly can to make that information available in a way that will make it easy to understand. We're also gearing up to help the community process the information and provide those comments within the defined comment period. So that comment period draws from 50 years of experience with NEPA and comes from federal regulations of our NEPA lead agencies. We're targeting a 60-day comment period, although HWA and FTA rules typically provide for a 30 to 45-day comment period. Because we're fielding a lot of requests for that additional time from our partners, we've worked with the agencies to identify that 60-day public comment period. Our team's also gearing up to help answer questions, walk through those things we've already done to help reviewers process information quickly, and to talk about the importance and ways to comment on the document. So our community engagement efforts leading up to this include advisory group meetings, neighborhood association meetings and forums, public briefings and events held with other partners, and public open houses and hearings. The refinements to the draft supplemental environmental impact statement, as I shared earlier, once we receive those comments, staff are going to work to address the comments and to clarify, update, add analysis, and change elements of the modified locally preferred alternative in response to the comments we've received to avoid, minimize, or mitigate impacts of the selected alternatives. So that work that we'll do to refine the modified LPA will start taking shape mid to late 2024, and our final supplemental EIS and ROD will be available late 2024 to early 2025. That work will be published in that final supplemental environmental impact statement, again for public review. And following that, our federal agencies will issue their record of decision, based on the review of that document. Next slide, please. So, and once again, the public comments and coordination with agencies and tribes around that the design options within the modified locally preferred alternative includes a number of those design options. So what is the bridge configuration? Double deck fixed, single level fixed, single level with a movable span over the primary navigation channel. the 1 or 2 auxiliary lane in each direction of I-5. With or without C Street on and off ramps to I-5 in downtown Vancouver. And whether I-5 will be centered or if there's going to be a westward shift of I-5 between SR 14 and Evergreen Boulevard to help address some of those concerns about impacts to the fort and sensitive resources. And then also possible park and ride facilities. Where will they be? Will there be park and ride facilities? Will they be near the new waterfront station, Evergreen Transit Station, etc. And next slide. And so this leads us, hopefully I didn't take too long going through that. It wasn't too quick. This leads us to the discussion. So as we're trying to advance this work and do our best to ensure that the information we provide is understandable, how can we help the community prepare for the draft supplemental environmental impact statement? Providing access to the draft supplemental in different formats. What can we do to help people understand the no-bill alternative versus the modified locally preferred alternative? To find information in the draft supplemental EIS. To understand potential impacts, benefits, and mitigation, providing comments on draft supplemental EIS information. Anything else? What information do you believe is most important for the public to understand about the draft document as we move forward? And I think that's it for my presentation. Shannon, help me out where I go from here. I think next slide.
Good, Chris. I think we'll pull the slides down and open it up to any questions from CBAG members, as well as comments on the 2 questions that were asked. Those questions were, how might we help community prepare? And what is the most important to understand about the draft for community members to provide public comment? But again, don't limit yourself to those. If you have questions of Chris as well, we can raise those. Go ahead, Holly.
Thank you. Was it Chris? That was helpful. I know people are really looking forward to this EIS and learning more. There's a lot of great information out now. The videos that were recently provided give some very good explanation of how automobiles and trucks would be accessing the bridge. One of the things I'm finding as I talk to neighbors is confusing for a lot of people is to understand sort of the project timeline and really understanding that for the short term, it's just the bridge that will be built. And I think it's hard for people to kind of wrap their arms around what's actually funded. I mean, I know that the EIS is going to be for the whole project, but I think people don't realize that this is like going out to 2045. And, so I think just some clarity as it's communicated, Mayor, would you say that could be helpful for people to really understand what are the impacts in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
Thank you. And just to make sure I captured, there's a piece around understanding the timeline, but there was also what may be currently funded, what might need future funding, and that
Right. For instance, some of the off-ramp changes that might happen, say 4th Lane, Highway 500, that could be very much into the future, but that's not necessarily to the uninitiated obvious. And likewise, I think it was the more it can be. The video was helpful in the sense that there was not just, pictures, but also an explanation. At our neighborhood meeting, sort of the 3D models that were presented were super helpful for people to see, like, whoa, this bridge is 6 stories up in downtown Vancouver. And so what does that feel like? And it really does change how you view the project and the kind of comments that you would make.
Thank you.
Chris, do you want to speak to time frame as Holly's sort of has an interpretation of things, but I'm not 100% sure is totally jiving with where the program is at right now. recognizing there's the implementation of these things is sticky and complicated and can change over time, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for that. One of the things that I did not really focus on too much in the presentation is there are specific impacts associated with how construction of the program is timed. And that, of course, will be an element that is described within our draft supplemental environmental impact statement that we'll take comments on, and we'll make sure that we incorporate those comments as we plan to move forward. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Those impacts have to be recognized. A discussion of the financing, of course, plays into that, and so we will be able to provide our community an idea of how this all fits together and what the trade-offs are, and then accept some comments on that.
Just on the issue, so to me, design horizon is helpful to clarify here. So design horizon is comparing futures, assuming that improvements have been made. And so it's not design horizon like that's when construction is going to be complete by. The assumption right now, operating with it'll be sooner. So just to make sure that's kind of clear, it felt a little bit.
Well, that just exactly kind of goes to my point, is helping people understand what is most likely to happen. Yeah, and the difference between those two things.
Yeah. And the intention in the EIS is to sort of look at the whole thing
Sure.
and to understand that and recognize implementation, has a plan, and that may change over time. So it's I think the idea that certainly the bridge is first, but also like it's not to say that the other stuff is maybe as far off the table as it may feel. So it's balancing it.
Yeah.
And we have our community engagement lead in the room with us, so she is hearing this, and we'll definitely put it into some of their roadshow that they're doing. So thank you. Peter.
Thank you. One thing I didn't see in the materials and I didn't hear spoken about, but the ultimate question in my mind is how will the completed project affect both states and also the local communities' greenhouse gas reduction goals, emissions reductions? Is that something that will be projected?
Yeah, and the short answer is yes. So our climate section will be addressing both states' climate goals and what we're doing to meet those and working with our local partners. Sorry, I didn't focus on that, but again, one of those technical areas that we have within our Chapter 3 impacts and benefits is to focus on climate. And so we will be addressing that.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Tom.
Hi, Tom Hickey from the CAG. Slide 24, which was the list of things that were pertinent to the SEIS, the stacked bridge versus the side-by-side and the auxiliary lanes. Are those the only topics that are under consideration at this point? Because what if somebody wants to talk about bike lanes or exit ramps and things like that? Are those part of this conversation, or are we strictly limited to that list of 6 or 8 items on slide 24?
Yeah, great question, Tom. Now I apologize if I gave you that impression that it was only these things. Those were the larger design options, and so there's a lot of moving parts associated with those design options. We're asking for review of our entire program and all of the elements within there. And again, part of what we're doing is looking at, have we got the analysis correct? Are these the right ways to address the needs that are out there? And so for active transportation, if there's suggestions of, hey, there might be a better way to do it, we definitely want to hear that within the public comments, and we'll take that under consideration as we move forward between draft and final to refine the modified locally preferred alternative.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Chris, thank you so much. As you're going through all of this documentation, will you please help us a little bit by making sure all maps and decision-making pages all have dates on them? As we have moved forward with so many different projects of this nature, people will hold up a document that they've received at a meeting and it's way out of date, but we would appreciate that opportunity. I know it's very minor, but it will help us tremendously as we move forward.
Thanks for that. That's great. Appreciate it.
Anyone else? All right, thanks for your patience. I'm pulling double duty today with online and in person. So thank you so much, Chris. I think for CBAG members, if any other questions or feedback about how you think it can be more accessible comes to you after the meeting, as always, please reach out and let us know. We want to hear that feedback and make sure we're getting this information into community's hands so they can give informed comment. And with that, we will go ahead and shift gears. We're going to move into some small groups to have discussion about some of what was both presented, but also that you all came up with as potential community benefits in the work we were doing in October. So this is your handout that you'll see. If you're in person, you've got it here. Go ahead.
Shannon, I think we do have another slide that we want to show that CBAG role with the final SEIS.
I think we might have lost Chris. Go ahead.
But that would be, we can help him with explaining this.
So in addition to kind of what Chris shared, we're really looking at those community benefits to consider advancing recommendations for both design and environmental analysis. We as staff are identifying the venue for where some benefits may live. So you've heard us say it might be in construction specifications, it might be in procurement requirements or goals. There might be other third-party agreements. They might be in the final SEIS. Some of that is what we will do as staff, is put stuff where it makes sense to go or where it can go. And you all will continue to see that as we iterate. Part of what we focused on in this front end of your work is the types of benefits that could be included in environmental documents because of some of the timeline pieces. Yeah. Next slide. So as we move into our breakout rooms, we are not asking you to populate all the funding sources. Our finance team has done some of that. If there's particular ones that you see that you do know of potential funding sources, feel free to add that. But really this is is this what you said? Is this right track? Would you add additional detail to any of these? Some of them are kind of big kind of policy or principle ideas or values. Are there things that you want to add that we didn't say here yet? And you'll spend some time in small groups just really going through that. And then we'll come back together and do a large report out that is by group of just kind of a couple of key takeaways from your conversations. For our in-person folks, I would like to have Mayor Ann, Eric, Walter, Corky be in a group. Then I've got Marcus, Commissioner Maps, Tom, and Ryan, and Darcy, Carly, and Holly will be together. And folks online, I will move you into your groups now. Eric, can you help people with getting any of the other rooms we've got?
Shannon, before we do that, this is not going to be a final package at the end of the day.
No, this is, we will go to make some decisions in January on, again, just these elements that might relate to environmental documents, but that is not your final either. You will have additional conversation about additional elements. For example, we've not spent a lot of time in physical design and the art and potential space there. we have not spent a lot of time on workforce equity. There's a lot of other stuff in there that I think we'll spend time with you all talking about and then getting continued recommendations from you as we present those in the coming months.
There were some items, and I'm looking on language for example, page 4. Third bullet down, it says, consider monitoring for noise, vibration, and air quality. Are we correcting that type of language? Because isn't that a required language, not to be considered, but actually to do?
Absolutely, you can add detail and refine those, yes.
Okay. And I didn't notice the community connector from Vancouver. Was that to be in this document, or should that have been somewhere else?
Did the sound cut out?
The room muted.
Apologies.
There you go.
They already went to breakout.
Okay, so if we have items that we left at home on our desk, we will bring those back then or send them to you in January or before January?
If you have items, we will go through, so November's conversation will get added. And then December was, November was visioning. And so that visioning work, if there's things from that will be pulled in, then we will do that. And then this meeting will be kind of where you're refining. January will come back with some decisions on the items that could be in environmental docs. And then we'll begin to discuss workforce equity and economic opportunity.
Just Mayor, just Carly, we're supposed to state our names before we talk to people online, so sorry about that. Just on your question about the monitoring piece, I think that some of the clarity is this question of like, what do DOTs sort of typically do or can do, or is a sort of maybe an unknown typical course of business, and maybe that feels like a little bit of your kind of comment or question is like, isn't this baked into the cake already?
Right.
So I think that's probably maybe part of the additional columns that are that the team is building out. But I think that just to make your point, I think it's really to be clear about what is something that is kind of already a course of business expected. And I guess the other point is that in the draft EIS, even though this conversation sort of mostly is a little bit late for sort of integration in there, some of these ideas we've been talking about are already going to be present in that document because it's again part of either typical course of business or stuff that is already been clearly in the dialogue to be in that document. So I think, I mean, you'll start to see some of these conversations in that content as well.
You're right, Carly, but I also know as the speed of which we're moving, if it's not in writing, if we don't have it, it's not dated, it's not in the documentation, it might get left out.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. It's a question of like housing responsibility.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right. So let's go ahead and move into our small groups. Folks online, I will move you in just a moment. Each group will have a note taker. And so Eric, if you can help folks get set up here, and I'll get folks set up online. All right, y'all, we're just getting resettled. We will do some report outs in just a moment here.
Did you make it to 434 words party last night? That community group was. Well, and I wasn't thinking, I drove past it, went to the old office. And okay, what address?
Yeah.
There was no parking.
I
The
bet.
entire parking was full. It said,
There we go. It's like Jasmine's our reporter, so.
Thank you. Sorry, y'all, I'm talking away and we were still on mute, so appreciate the patience. Jasmine, I hear you are our report out person. Would you like to go ahead?
Sure, sounds great. Were you all talking and no one was hearing? I'm sorry. Okay, so in our group, we had some good conversation. We had the opportunity to speak to the mobility piece. Things that were considered were talking about the wayfinding signs specifically in downtown Vancouver, but then also in general, talking about how historic site signs are being used on the on like the freeway and whatnot itself. And we also did rope that into how that could also speak to physical design as well, as we got into the culture piece. We also discussed in that mobility piece, recognizing the climate that we live in and the rainy experience, 9 months throughout the year, and considering shelters and whatnot for walkers if they're caught in a downpour. Then overall, just ensuring that we're keeping express transit in our bus rapid transit in mind, because we noticed that that wasn't explicitly called out in that area, but we also know that there are conversations around that. And then into physical design, we really wanted to ensure that there were interactive pieces that the community could engage with as they're walking through the spaces. That could be different questions that maybe like you and your kiddos might be looking at as you're walking through, like who was the president, XYZ, different things that might be etched into the sidewalks, just things of that nature to consider. And then once again, the historic signs that were mentioned earlier. And then only two other sections we got into, which was community design and workforce. Community design, we talked about gathering spaces and also fishing opportunities, really expanding a little bit on what those gathering spaces looked like, because it was out in the community benefits space. So open spaces was called out, but maybe digging a little bit deeper into what those open spaces could look like. And then we also got over to workforce and really taking a deeper dive into really outlining what those commitments into investing in our community looks like when it comes to internships, apprenticeships, things of that nature, but not just outlining a little bit more of what that commitment looks like, but also when it comes to engaging specific minority groups, what percentage are we hoping to what percentage of those communities are we hoping to set as a goal for how many of them will be included in this process? So creating some tangible numbers, like, is it 20% that we expect of the people working on these projects to be members of the BIPOC community, or minority-owned business owners, or something of that nature? What are the specific numbers that we're aspiring to, and then specifically outlining that within that section? But we had a lot of meaty discussion, so that's all we got to. So that's my summary for us.
Thank you, Jasmine. How about Peter's group included Scott, Nate, and Jessica?
We neglected to select a spokesperson. We had Fabian taking notes.
Well, Nate knows I'll always pick on the people who are my friends, so he can go ahead and do the report out.
Nice.
I didn't do it, Nate. I didn't do it.
Well, Jessica, if you want to kick it off, I'll jump in with you. I know I'm gonna forget some stuff, but we talked about planning and some art on the bridge and adjacent areas around the bridge. I'm going ad lib, so there's no notes in front of me. I'm just trying to remember all the discussion. We did have a housing discussion around the need for more transit-oriented development, considering that there's air admissions and, folks of color and those in low income status should not be living by freeways. And so that being a risk mitigator, where are we building at? We talked about what types of housing is needed. We echoed a lot of strong support for what Oregon, and I can't speak for Washington, but workforce housing is needed more than ever. And California is the only model I know that does it very well. So if we can almost have workforce housing meets transitional housing, call it dormitories for those in training, 5-year, 10-year commitment to transition them out of affordable housing into home ownership. We need a system that does that, and we need bodies to build these projects. So if we can bring those two worlds together, even better. And then we talked about next generation being at these tables. We're building these projects not for all of us in these rooms, but for the next generation. So how do we bring their voices into these discussions at the high school level as well as college, maybe even K through 5th, because some kids are interested in transition and transportation at a younger age. So what does that look like? Peter had another comment that I know I'm missing. So I don't know if Peter had another thought or two around that, but I echo what Jasmine said about, disaggregation of data and who we're really supporting. I did have a comment, and Shannon took this on, but it was more about, we do a lot of these visioning sessions, and what typically happens is we get a million things that we want to accomplish, and resources can only do 2 of the 1 million things we want to do. So how are we going to make sure we don't slow walk people to the no answer instead of the we can't do this answer right out the gate, so that we can actually focus on what we can do in the short and long term, because we definitely need to prioritize a lot of things that we know we can't speak. So I think that kind of covers most of it, but certainly Jessica, Peter, or others in the group, Scott, if you had more comment, please share. All
Great
right,
job,
I got most of it.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Farley.
Yeah, hi, everybody. So I'm just going to go through our bullet points here. So under mobility and accessibility, some highlights were making sure documentation is available in Spanish and other languages. Having access to the 3D model online would be really helpful. So the visual cues are really helpful for understanding what the design is. There was a call out to the Main Street Promise project and the success of using QR codes for helping the public understand what the design intent is. We talked about maintaining access to trails and trail networks, and then also the importance of lighting for pedestrians. Well, really for everybody, but importance of lighting in making sure that there's safe networks for people to travel on, and then balancing that with ecosystem health and not overlighting to impact birds and other creatures. Under physical design, we talked about clearly defining what sustainable and environmentally friendly means. So sustainability is a very broad topic. And so are we talking about energy efficiency? Are we talking about embodied carbon? Are we talking about human health impacts like toxins and VOCs? Are we talking about ecosystem health? So more clearly, when we say sustainable and environmentally friendly, what do we mean by that? And having specific metrics we're looking at to measure the success of that goal. Related to that, we talked about like new concrete technology. So using supplemental cementitious materials. Moss came up as a new technology. I'm not familiar with that personally, but something to look into maybe. Incorporating the natural beauty of our environment. So trees and plantings integrated in the bridge. And then the beauty of the bridge. So we talked about some of our local bridges that are our favorites, including the St. John's Bridge and Tillicum Crossing. And what stood out was that those bridges are iconic. You can recognize them from a distance. They're rooted in context. And there's something unique and special about them. Under decision-making process, we talked about leaning into the lived experience of people for input. So, specifically talking to people with disabilities and understanding what their lived experience is, not having representatives speak for them necessarily. Also, that it's really helpful to report back on what is heard and highlighting when that's been incorporated into the design. So sometimes it can feel like you're just like communicating into a void and you don't know if that information is being heard and responded to. And so hearing back, this is what we've heard, this is how we're incorporating that feedback is helpful for encouraging more people to be involved and share. We also talked about pushing into schools at all levels. So high school, middle school, elementary school, recognizing that these are the people who are going to be benefiting from the bridge in the future. We're talking about a 2045 timeline. That's 20 years from now, 20 plus years from now. So 18-year-olds are going to be 38. And that getting input from the younger generations of people is going to be really important. And then related to
sorry, Farley, I'm sorry, we're at time, so I'm gonna have to end there. We do have all the notes, but I would like to give Mary Ann an opportunity to give some of the feedback that was in the room, and then we'll go ahead and end the meeting.
Sure.
Okay, the only piece that I think I'd like to add is our conversation about freight. We're not seeing that in this document. Where is it? What does it do? Where do we talk to them in all of those discussions, the physical design, the benefits of that? And then we talked about the bridge envelope. We know the bridge influence area from SR 500 down, but what about the bridge and everything under the bridge? Thank you, Patrick, for bridge envelope. And then we added the performance of pre-construction building analysis. Before anything gets started, what do we have within 100, 200, 300 feet? What condition is it in and how do we mitigate for the impacts of construction? The rest of it's in notes along with our community connectors, plural, under and over both sides of the river.
Thank you so much. And thank you all. The conversations were going so well. I didn't want to end them in the small group. So I appreciate the quick report outs. Go ahead, Carly.
Just one question for the bit of folks here. If there's other things they think of between now and some question to team date, such that they see that reflected for sort of the next meeting, if other things dawn on folks, how soon would you like those so that folks can see them at the next meeting?
Yeah, we would like those by, I'm going to say, by yesterday. No, I think by the end of next week would be great. If that's tough for you, just reach out and let me know and we can figure out making sure we get it from you. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
We did not report from our group yet.
I know we did not have time.
Are you skipping? All right.
Yep. So we're skipping the other two. Yep, we've got your written notes. We'll absolutely incorporate all of that. And we'll get that pulled into the conversation. So thank you all so much. And thank you for our folks online. Really appreciate the robust discussion today. Take care.
We'll see you in Vancouver. Do we have a date in January yet?
We do. We're back to our regular rotation, the 25th, the fourth, right? Fourth week of the month.
And I'll just say last call for donuts and thank you, Marianne, for being your treat. So that's okay.